Hello, everyone. Really excited to welcome you to the first founded event of 2022. For those who haven't been to one before, it's been a few months since we've done one. Founders is a series of conversations with entrepreneurs, industry disruptors, understanding and hearing their stories of hustle, growth, success, and of course, failure. There will be faces on the screen today, but we like to keep these sessions really light in terms of content. So there'll be no slides shared. So maybe not this time, but if you ever want to take these conversations outside on a walk or wherever you like, then please do. I think we all spend enough time in front of screens. And it's been amazing to see all the preparations and decorations in London this week, real buzz around the place, all leading up to today's conversation with Holly from Subly. Subly is a truly innovative automatic subtitles and translation tool used by over 120,000 users in 174 countries and growing at a very impressive pace. And having spoken to Holly recently, this really is just the beginning. So we're very fortunate to have her time and hear her story today. So thank you, Holly. And also thanks to Tash, who will host today's conversation. Tash is founder of Slip and was previously a consultant at Gate One and incubator entrepreneur. Tash has her own story of business ideation and growth and plenty in common with Holly when it comes to technology, fundraising, building a team and thinking seriously big. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat as we go. We'll save 10 minutes at the end for an open discussion or an opportunity to ask any further questions. But without further ado, over to Tash and Holly.
Thank you, Ali, and thanks, Holly, so much for joining us. This is kind of the first, I hosted a founders session, I think back in October last year, maybe even earlier when I was still working at Gate One. So it's weird to be taking this one from our very own Slip office, but very, very happy to host you and kind of share your story with more people. So tell us. Obviously, Ali gave a brief introduction to what is Subly, and I think that as much as entrepreneurs, we have to do it. We all hate our elevator pitch, but now's your time. Give us the elevator pitch. What is Subly?
Thank you, Tash. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. But essentially, what Subly is that every single person watching this video today watches video on an ongoing basis. Whether it's social media, you see ads, you see YouTube videos, you do internal videos and so on. And with all those videos, when you add subtitles and resize to the right size, it increases engagement by 80% of your videos. So the problem really is that there isn't an easy way to do subtitles. There isn't an easy way to resize your videos if you don't have Subly. So we created the simplest way, easiest way to resize, re-edit, subtitle and translate and snip up your videos into various formats, different times, and it's all in a software platform that has a very nice interface, and it makes it easy for anyone to use. And we're used by over 120,000 users, and we're used by some of the biggest broadcasters, marketing agencies, companies that are very much household names that now use Subly. And we've been going publicly for 2 years now and have pretty great growth I'm pretty proud of. So that's what Subly is.
Amazing. It's such an interesting one I think about, because obviously the pandemic and TikTok just has seen such a massive rise in video content, which is kind of at the forefront of everyone's mindset around how can we create video content. But you came up with Subly prior to the video content kind of massive boost in era. So what were you doing before Subly that gave you the idea to start it?
Yeah, my background is in marketing, like some people here as well, I'm sure. And in all those roles I've had to try and make that company internal communications more engaging, or the ad more engaging, or increase the views, or so on. And the simplest way to do that was through adding subtitles after doing lots of research on how can I increase engagement on videos. So I've worked at kind of companies like Google, Xerox, tech companies like Mimecast. And it wasn't probably until I had my own marketing agency that I created around 5 years ago now. And I had a learning platform as well to help women start their own tech businesses. And with both those companies, I was also doing a lot of content, and primarily on YouTube. And then a couple of times I was on Sky News. And in in both of those, in all of that context, that's where Subly was born out of, in that I was trying to take that learning material or the marketing material that I was putting on YouTube, and just really easily needed to take the end cuts, snip it up into various kind of size formats and times where it's like 1 minute or even 30 seconds or even 15 seconds for an ad. And all I needed to do was add subtitles and then try and translate into a couple of languages. And there wasn't an easy way to do that. It was going to be extremely costly for me to do that as a small agency. And for myself, it was just not something that I could afford. And so that's where it all started. And with the growth of more YouTubers, more podcasters who we could support with video and audio, it was really born out of my own pain point of like one video that was only 5 minutes long was taking me like 3 hours to do this whole process of uploading, downloading, subtitling, resizing. And I was like, there must be a better way. And yeah, it came from my own pain point. And that was 3.5 years ago, I came up with the idea of Subly.
Yeah, I think often, entrepreneurs often come up with that startup idea based on a pain point that they have in their daily lives. Yours is a bit more corporate than my Zara painful queue to return my jeans, but you have this idea, you've got this problem statement and you're desperate to solve it. What did you do next? Like, how did you start, building Subly? What was kind of the first big step that you took?
Yeah, I didn't even start building anything for at least 6 months. And to start a tech company, Tash, it costs so much money. And I wasn't willing to take my money out of my pocket until I'd validated the idea enough that there's like more people have the same pain point, or what other tools are out there? Can I do this better? And yeah, it was a lot of research over 6 months of interviewing potential customers, podcasters, anyone I could speak with. And then it started with a landing page. So I just used a very basic website platform and had just a click of a button. It could sign up to a newsletter where I was posting about content. And it just said, easy way to add subtitles onto your videos and resize for different platforms. And that was how it all started. And it wasn't for at least another year that we even had a product ready to go. And you always think the product is going to be ready within 3 months or 6 months, or some sort of minimum viable product you could test. But there was none of that until, probably a year in from just testing that idea. Otherwise you can spend a lot of money. And I didn't know if I'd even be able to go for investment. I'd never raised money before. But yeah, I knew how much it would cost to build a technology product. And it wasn't until I'd done enough validation that I was willing to go ahead.
Yeah, well, we'll touch on the fundraising thing in a bit, but obviously you and I know each other because we both took part in the same accelerator program, albeit in different years. So at what point did you decide I'm going to do Founder Institute, and where was the product when you started the program versus where you ended it?
Yeah, so Founder Institute is a really interesting one because I also had a couple of businesses before, and I thought I don't need an accelerator program. I already know a few things. I don't need to build the product just yet. I've got a technical team, so I don't need this. And that I kept coming up with like roadblocks of things that I didn't know, like how to price your product. And we also need a different name, because at that point it was called Take One Video. And that was never going to be let's Subly it kind of material. So I definitely needed kind of more validation. And I just needed someone to just throw me in the deep end and just accelerate it very quickly. So it was 3 months program. It took a lot of convincing from their course leader. I think I might have been one of the hardest people to convince to go onto the program. But yeah, the investment was like it was like £1,000 or something. And for you to validate a product with different founders around you, and you would also get kicked off the program if you don't complete your homework, it kind of gives you the kick up the bum that you need. And that's the only reason why I decided to go into it. And my team was still building the product, and I'd now gone back full time to Google, the third time I've gone back, because I was paying for the development and the team through my own money. And I couldn't really do much rather than do some marketing, try and create partnerships, try and do a bit of sales, but I hadn't had a product to sell. So everyone's ready on standby, but there's nothing for me to do. So I kind of need some support around me of all the other things that I need to think about. And yeah, it's probably one of the best decisions that I did. We're probably good advocates of that Founder Institute. Very on Tash.
No, I think the thing that it really teaches you, and kind of what you're saying about that kick up the bum, it's that resilience. It's that this is only a snippet of how hard and time consuming and demanding being a founder is going to be. So you've got to almost decide whether you're ready for that over those 12 weeks. And then if you are, kind of starts building up that resilience. So you graduate Founder Institute, you've got the product. It's then that dreaded thing that all founders think about, which is fundraising. And tell us a bit about your first fundraise. How did you go about it, and what has kind of the funding journey look like since up until now?
Yeah, I first planned that I didn't actually want to fundraise to begin with. I just wanted to build a product and start to make money out of that product, and I didn't want to be just based off users or any other way that you'd make money, like ads, or for example. And so with that, firstly, I gave up the marketing agency in Australia, gave up the other business in Australia, and I moved back to the UK. I went back to Google for the third time. I generated the money through my income. And then I actually stayed at home with my dad. And I haven't lived with my dad since I was 2 years old because my parents separated, and went back home. And so my only income was going straight into the business. And from that point, I thought in around I think it was like month 2 into Founder Institute, there's growth more in creators, in YouTubers, in automation tools to make people's lives easier and saving money and saving time, that this could be a fundable business from a VC. And I was also getting validation from different mentors on the program as well. But also probably prior to the Founder Institute, I wasn't really going down the route of speaking to investors. I was actually going through advisors and people that knew this space really well. I think one of the first people I spoke with was the CEO of Clear Channel Media, of like, how would you put subtitles onto out of home? Like, how are you making this more engaging? And he was like, oh, okay, this sounds interesting. And he was probably one of my first investors. And then he kind of brought more people along that would be interested in coming on board and in investing. So I actually didn't go quite kind of the investor route. I went after advisors and I didn't even think that would come out of him investing or any of his friends. I didn't expect anything of them because I was still focused on that revenue of the product. But then when I went into investment, one of our first investors as an investor was from Founder Institute. And the way that I approached it was just, this is the vision, but I've already got this much validation of 1,200 people signed up. There's more people that want this product. I'm starting small, but we're going to grow it to more creators and small businesses, and just being realistic with what we can achieve in the first year. But at that point, I think Paul, one of our investors, said, Paul, he also said, Holly, you're never going to get to 40,000 users within a year. And I was like, hell yeah, I am. So it's like showing all those big goals I was trying to get to, but also being realistic. And I think I hope I'm still doing that today, where it's kind of showing everyone our vision of where we want to be, especially to our investors, but I'm very realistic with them of like, this is our growth rate. I'm even transparent about money that's coming through Stripe on our payment system. I even screenshot that on LinkedIn because I hate that kind of smoke and mirrors look of startups as well. So yeah, that's the way that I approached it. And that's how I still do it now, kind of third funding round in.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's really hard because you want to be as transparent and realistic, but you also have to sell like the big vision and the big dream. So you get caught in this kind of middle ground of you're not wanting to oversell, but you're wanting people to really think about how big this actually could be. I think that, fundraising is something that is talked about a lot. So it's not that it's not an interesting topic, but I think that what I really want to share with kind of everyone on the call is around your approach to marketing Subbly. So speaking a bit about how are you currently acquiring customers? What's, your strongest customer acquisition strategy?
Yeah, it's actually our strategy has always been to kind of build a community first. So because we had, especially during COVID, we built that free user community. And what we found is that people were just sharing it. It was such an easy tool to use. So that's probably the first way, is that we're very product led. So we think about what our users' pain points are, what's going to make it easy to use a product, and how will they recommend it to each other, but actually not pushing them to refer us or for them to use a code. That actually hasn't worked for us. We even had an ambassador program, and we had like a made with Subly toggle on the video as well. And neither of those things brought in most customers or users. So the first one is product-led growth is what we've seen most effective for us. To have a great product so people use it and they'll tell more people about it. The second piece is investing in SEO for us. We really needed to make sure that we're creating great product, great search terms around how to use subtitles of video and how to translate your video, like all these basic search terms that people use, kind of getting us higher in the ranking of that one. Like it's a very searchable way to do that. Actually, when we did ads this time last year and we tested multiple channels without knowing our users enough, because at that point we're still very early in terms of making revenue. We were going very far and wide. We were trying different regions because it was cheaper to acquire them. But what the learning really was from that is that we've gone too far and wide. We've tried to go for different regions before we've even got a product that's localized. Our pricing isn't localized, like all these things that you don't think about when localizing a product. So for us, the best way is to start in one area, so the UK, and look at areas like Manchester and London, and then start to grow your ads based on your user profile as well. So it's been super hyper targeted, and testing lots was very important for us in terms of SEO or Google ads terms. And then we actually switched off marketing completely for around 6 months and just looked into our users. And then now we've ramped up marketing again. And because we've been laser focused, we've already seen an 18% increase on revenue from the month that we didn't. So it's lots of diving into the data more than just lots of marketing. And then the other one is like on LinkedIn. I'm on there a lot in terms of like looking at what people are doing, or I post a lot about how the business is growing. But the one thing that I've seen is that anything that's too pushy about our product just does not resonate. Anything that is timely, an event, interesting content, someone to consume, or something that is quite comical and people want to talk about it, like that is what gets results, not necessarily just being pushy with product.
Yeah, totally. I think that LinkedIn is fab, and it was kind of going to lead me on to kind of my next question, which is one of, I'm a big fan of your LinkedIn content, that, but one of my favorite posts that you did was around the Airbnb video. So I'd love you to kind of tell everyone what the video, people probably haven't seen it. So what was the video? What did you do? And kind of what was the outcome of that post? Because it went quite viral.
Yeah, you're right. It did. I actually looked at the stats of this, and I'm not usually tracking this. I usually just put content out there that I find interesting. But I had 70,000 impressions on that day, which is like a 300% increase from the month before on the same, taking it on the same time. And we had in terms of users to Subly, 1,500% increase. So it's pretty big. But it's
so you've hyped it up. Now everyone's dying to know.
Boom. Yeah, follow me. No, I'm joking. No, but what it was is that Airbnb posted their product launch, and I was seeing hype of this, of like, they haven't done too much on this. It's not, and everyone was talking around this. Like I was looking on Product Hunt, which is one area that I tend to look for startup products. And then I also saw their video on Product Hunt didn't have subtitles on there. Then my boyfriend also said, "Oh, on Twitter, I've just seen have you seen Airbnb? They haven't got subtitles." And I was like, right, okay, this has gone far. It's gone far enough now. You've spoken about it and I've seen all these comments. And then the next morning I woke up on the Friday morning, I was like, oh, let's have a coffee. I'm ready, I'm hyped. And just took the video of maybe the first 30 seconds of the video from Airbnb, put it into our tool and added subtitles onto it. And it must have taken me less than 2 minutes to do this. There was barely any changes I needed to do on the transcription. Added their logo, added their font, uploaded that, added the right colors. And it barely took me any time at all. And then I posted it up and was just like, Airbnb, I'm disappointed. You're always looking at diversity and inclusion, but you didn't even add subtitles for your biggest launch in like 3 years, and so on. And then next minute, I know I'm getting loads of comments. I had like 146 comments happen. It went a bit very, like, quite big for what I wouldn't say I'm a LinkedIn creator so much, but it got a lot of views. And I think it was more that it was like timely. It's a brand that people follow. Everyone uses Airbnb, and everyone's thinking about these things. Like, why didn't they add subtitles on? I was scrolling through and didn't see the video, didn't listen to it. And then people were commenting and adding in the Airbnb team and so on. So yeah, I think it's more on that timely, there's context, and then you can plug in at the end that maybe with Subly, go and use it. But it was a lot of people commenting on this, and then it got a number of customers for Subly too.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of one of those things where it's almost like this subliminal nudge, where it's not forceful marketing and you're not sending it to Airbnb, you're almost sending their video viral and almost doing them a favor that more people are finding out about it, and then also promoting your product as a result. So yeah, it was content that definitely stood out for me when I saw it, and I guess the numbers speak for itself. And I think that we're in a world now where there's just so much content being put out there, whether it's on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and just making your content stand out is one of those things. Obviously, you know, you're saying that subtitles is a way to do that, but even more so, your post stood out because it had a video, and a lot of LinkedIn posts don't actually have video content. It's normally just text. So it was very, very interesting. So that was definitely a good marketing decision that you made. And you spoke about some others around really targeting. What's the worst marketing decision you've made so far?
I would say probably a product thing as well as marketing, but going too broad to start off with. In terms of with product, there's so much we can do at Subly, but we need to be very specific on what we spend our time on and what we don't spend our time on, and what's going to give us the biggest result versus a very small incremental result. So I'd say, like, it's one, just don't go too broad when you're building a product. Start off small and then start to add things on. I think we were trying to do so much I'd say the next time we raised funding, like the first year, I was super conservative with how we spend. Second year, we raised a bigger amount of funding, and I was like, okay, we need to do this, 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 and this, and that can work. But things take so much time, and so much time of validation, speaking to customers. And so the same goes for marketing. What we should have done all along was just focus on one user, so one use case. And that should have been what it is now. It's marketing teams, it's larger communication teams. We have creators and YouTubers, but they tend to be larger teams and larger podcasters. And I think we should have focused on maybe one user segment that has the same pain points. Whereas the problem we had at the start is that we had so many users and we didn't have enough data to back up what they were using our product for, because we're in build mode. And so then that meant that we were trying to build because we have like learning development teams on board, we have internal comms teams, we have diversity and inclusion teams. They all have similar problems, but very different ways that they work together. Whereas we knew the pain point of a marketing team and social media team and so on, or an agency. So we should focus on that rather than going too broad. And the same goes for, anything like going after a UK market as well as Brazil. We shouldn't have done. We should have just stayed with the UK. Whereas you get overexcited because you have so many users coming to you and you're looking at your analytics and so on. But yeah, the biggest learning that I've had is just start small and then scale up.
Yeah, amazing. So a question that's come through on the chat, which we'll just throw in here while we're still talking about marketing, is how are you targeting customers today? So what channels and type of content are you using? I know you spoke about SEO being something that's really important, but what other channels and content are you creating?
Yeah, so for us, it's that consistency, which is the biggest one as well. And then we look at Google Ads, Facebook, we're testing Bing, and we're just focusing on one market at the moment. And what else? What are the types of content we're doing? That's the main one, really. Then we do talk a lot about our brand, or I'll post something, and so does the team. So we're actively using our product as well and the use case for it. But yeah, I'd say we've just switched on ads, but our consistency on SEO is definitely what we're looking at now. And we're also now featuring more on like kind of online events like this one, podcast, like we're trying out some of the other channels. For around 8 months, we went a bit quiet on those channels. We were in research and development mode. We're looking at our customers, our users, just diving into the data and going, who are our exact users, and understand that first. And then we could be laser focused on who we're going after.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's a really, really focused strategy. So before we kind of get on to a bit more about lifestyle, which obviously everyone is always interested in, I'd love to kind of touch a bit about your team. So obviously your team is spread out massively and always has been. So you were a remote team pre-pandemic. So tell us about what inspired you to be a remote team pre-pandemic, and obviously now it's still working, and is that always the plan?
Yeah, I think the main one for me is that I didn't really like going to the office. I hated the commute. And I was spending, especially for my dad's in Southwest London, I think it's taking me an hour and 20 minutes to get to Google every single day. And it made me so miserable. And I thought, why am I doing this anymore? Like, this makes me so miserable. I don't want to do this. So I don't think many other people wanted to do an hour and 20 commute either. I just decided we're not going to do this. It just doesn't work for us. And a lot of my team, especially during the pandemic, had now moved to Nottingham and Leicester, and I was at my mum's then in Malvern. And yeah, I just didn't want to start doing that commute again. So I just decided for everyone's well-being, they're happier at home. We then tried to meet maybe 3 or 4 times a year. The leadership team tend to meet more than that. But if we could go through pandemic, building a startup or remotely, then I was pretty sure that we could still build that post-pandemic, and we could still have some meetings together. And yeah, it's more of a well-being thing and having a happier team working from home. I think that I do miss seeing them more often, but you weigh up productive time, and I'm always on calls anyway, so I don't tend to speak to many people besides customers or investors or the team. And yeah, I just disrupt all the developers anyway in the office. I decided to stay remote.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that there are a lot of people on the call that either have a startup or are thinking about starting a business or maybe in the future. Do you think you would have been able to go fully remote from the outset? Or do you think because you had the team together to begin with, that kind of has allowed you to bring in that remote first strategy?
So our team was, we already knew each other. So I think that helped. So our product manager, I'd known her for years before. My co-founder, no longer with us, but had a co-founder divorce around 6 months ago, which is never nice. But we worked together before, and he'd brought on some of the other developers as well, and I brought on another developer. But even at that point, a developer that I'd connected with years before, he was so sold on the remote idea. I wanted him for his skills, and it wasn't necessarily that you're based in that location that I was basing it on. And then when I moved over from Australia to the UK, then we had to make sure that was going to work. So it probably did help that we originally, the core team, knew each other. But then I don't think I ever met our COO in person for at least 6 months until she started. And most of the team today are still with us, and we've only met each other probably twice in person.
It's mad, isn't it? It's just such a different world. And what does the team look like? Who do you have in the team? Where are they based? What are they doing?
Yeah, so we've got a team of 12 now, and pretty much splits 50-50 on the tech team involving product and the operations, marketing, sales team. And they're all based pretty much in the UK, some in London, some outside London. And then we have a couple of team members in Amsterdam, and then we have a few team members in Australia as well. So the core team are together, and that core team just focuses on UX and product. And so we're pretty spread out. And then that team, even through the funding round, we're not going to be expanding too much. It's about keeping the current team, and we might add maybe 2 or 3 more members, but that depends on the fundraising and how much we raise. So yeah, we're and then we've got, we're all like the leadership team is all women. And then we have Miguel and Andy, who's sales and tech as well. So we've got a very, very heavy hitters on the women leadership team.
My favorite thing to hear, Holly. So yeah, just conscious of time, because we'll do like 5 more minutes and then we'll open it up to questions. And I've already seen one come through, which is a really interesting one. But is being an entrepreneur the best thing in the world?
One, I never see myself as an entrepreneur, because I feel like an entrepreneur is someone that's made like loads and loads of money, but I'm still sitting here today in the flat. I'd say what I do enjoy about being an entrepreneur is that you are autonomous and you can make the decisions. And I'm really bad at following rules and someone telling me what to do. And that is what used to kill me in corporate, was that I was being told what to do. So I'm not sure I'm the best employee. I'm sure my managers will also say that. Used to rebel a little bit. And that's probably the biggest thing for me, is that it was that I could kind of run my own course. So I would say that's one of the best things. The downsides to it, though, of having your own business, it's really stressful. Like, I'm not going to lie. There's been sleepless nights. There's been crying episodes. There's things that felt like panic attacks. My boyfriend's had to go through it all with me. He's still staying there strong, so I think I'm doing okay. But yeah, it's really stressful, and things will hit you and smash you in the face, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I can't get out of this. And then a week later, everything's all good. And it's constantly up and down all the time. One day you'll have a spike in revenue, the next day it's down again, and you've got to be able to go through those motions and be okay with it. So yeah, it's great if you want to rebel, but if you're not up for the stress, then it might not be for you, and that's okay. You don't have to be an entrepreneur either.
Yeah, no, and I think, there'll be a lot of people on the call that are from Gate 1, and I think I'll disagree slightly with something that you said, that being an entrepreneur isn't just someone that's made tons of money. I think that an entrepreneur it's a mindset thing. It's about thinking differently, thinking outside the box, and just challenging the status quo. It's about having the audacity to say, just because it's always been done before that way doesn't mean it should be done that way anymore. And I think that's something that I've always, that's a perfect example of why you started your business. You literally ask yourself, just because it's always been done this way doesn't mean that it should be done that way anymore. So you are an entrepreneur, Holly, and you should manifest that. Okay, one more from me before I open it up. You spoke about this up and down, and we all know that's advice to entrepreneurs. It's going to get tough. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? And what's the best advice you would give to someone else?
I think, really interesting question. Best advice I've been given is probably from a point of, if you're building a product right now, just listen to customers. Like, that is the best thing that you can do, is just interview them, get on calls, like get as much qualitative data as you can. That's probably the biggest thing. And then it kind of goes on the listening point as well, but also listen to other people that have been there and done it, because there's so many times where I can give a call to one of our investors who have been there before, or just get some advice on how to manage a certain situation, because you're going to have tough situations that come up. But listen to people that are around you. You don't always know the best. Sometimes I thought I did. I still do sometimes. But yeah, listen to people around you. What was the other question, Tash? The worst advice? So is the advice that you've been given the advice that you would give to someone else? Is, if someone was starting a business tomorrow, would you tell them the same thing, or would you tell them something else? Absolutely tell them the same thing, but also don't listen too much sometimes, because if you listen to the users too much, or someone else's opinion, whereas you've got another strong opinion, take some of it, the advice with a pinch of salt sometimes, because sometimes they don't know best. So it's constantly weighing that up. But the other advice I'd just say is you just have to just really believe in yourself. Like, you really have to gear it into yourself. You're going for this now, because if you don't believe it, or you don't believe in that idea enough, and you just start an idea and you want it to be big, but you're not that into it, then it's not going to go very far. Like, I've started a few other businesses in the past, and I've just canned them because I was like, I'm not feeling this anymore. And now, yes, Subly's 4 years in, which is the longest job I've had, plus the business that I've had the longest. So yeah, I just say go for it and just make sure that you're sure about the idea.
Amazing. Thank you. Great advice. I totally agree. If your heart's not fully in it, don't do it. Cool. A question that we've got in the audience, by the way, if anyone else has any other questions in the audience, please feel free just to pop them in the chat and we'll go through them now. Obviously that you've worked at Google before, and I think there's definitely some narrative in the startup ecosystem of being like ex-Google, ex-Facebook, ex-Amazon kind of big tech companies. But what's the biggest thing that you learn at Google that's now helping kind of shape the entrepreneurial journey today?
Biggest thing is probably management skills and having really good managers. And some of them, like their mentality or how they manage me, because I was probably a nightmare. Yeah, that is probably the biggest thing that I've taken from that, because they have such good training schemes. They are trying you to be a manager. They've got the best people around you in often those positions. And I'd probably say that's the biggest thing that I've learned from Google more than anything.
Yeah, amazing. Does anyone else in the audience have any other questions? Feel free to pop them in the chat. Whilst waiting for that, I will ask another one that I have, of course. What's like your top tip for staying motivated? You know, we all have those bad days and those down days that you're speaking about. So what is it that you do to kind of get yourself up?
Okay, so you will have really bad days and then your really good days, as you said, Tash. And I'm actually the worst for this, but I tell other people to do this, that if you're having a really bad day and you can't pull yourself out, just take a step away, go for a walk, go for a coffee, get out of the house. And there's some jobs that you really don't want to do, or you know you're not very good at. So for one, I find it very difficult to mentally focus on financial planning statements or legal. And sometimes when I'm behind my desk, I just want to go and do my other things that I like doing within the job. So I'd say take a step away, get out of the house, go for a coffee, sit in a coffee shop and go and work from there. That definitely helps me 100%. I think I did 3 times last week, and usually I just stay behind my desk, but I couldn't bring myself out of funk. Yeah. That's probably the biggest one. And the other one is that there's so many different things on a to-do list that you can do, and it can often get you panicked. So make sure you're just prioritizing on I have a really simple trick. I know what my to-do list is, whether that's we're using Jira for the team, or I have my notebook with some of my to-do list for the week, but just 3 things I have to complete that day. And if you're having a bad day, just do 3 things. And I just have it on a sticky note next to me because I just have to complete them. And that's that is the most important thing that I can do on that day.
Yeah, definitely. We started to do something really similar as a team around goal setting for the week, of just put 4 things that are like your non-negotiable for the week. You know, it's not about necessarily telling everyone your to-do list every day, like BAU is assumed. Cool. Right. 2 questions that have come in that we'll ask is, how much do you test pricing?
With price, it is so difficult, and I don't know how you even get this one right. But and I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I tell you what we did. We had a free product, and we had a lot of small businesses and creators using it to begin with. We just need to see if they were going to pay, or who would be our early first adopters of this. And we set a really low bar. I think originally it was £6 a month. That was so cheap. And I think underpriced, absolutely, and I know that. We shouldn't have set it that low. And we ran that campaign for a month, but it got a lot of hype. So we got a lot of early users that loved us, wanted to pay to a very low price point. So that's the first thing that we did. And then the next thing we did was started to look at our competitors, or we're constantly looking at competitors anyway, but what does their pricing look like? How do people think about signing up for a product? Is it users and seat count? Is it minutes for transcription? Is it downloads and so on, like you do with Loom when you record a video? So we're always constantly looking at it. So now one thing we've said is we just refine it to 3 packages. It still seems like too many to me, but we're still testing that as well. And we have a middle-sized package that anyone can start on a 7-day free trial. But with the pricing, it is something that constantly needs to be looked at. And I don't know if there's a silver bullet on that one. It's just a lot of user research. There are some consultants you can go to. We haven't quite done that yet, as we're still validating our product. We're still building. So with enterprise, for example, it's just $1,620 for a year, and you could have as many users as you want. Because our goal, yes, it is revenue, but our goal is also to have really sticky users who never leave us. And if we can get behind the barrier of enterprises having a cap on their credit cards or so on, we can just get people signed up, then that was our strategy, to get as many people as possible and test the businesses. And that's one thing that we're still testing. So consistently pricing and testing and then raising them, and also raising them and maybe decreasing them, but it's constantly moving.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking about those kind of important decisions around finances, who do you take kind of your important decisions around product and finance and strategy to, or do you just do it all on your own? Like, do you have a sounding board?
Don't make all the decisions myself anymore. Absolutely. Never have, actually. I have a really good team. And so with product, it's like our head of product, Lucy, looking into the research, coming up with maybe 3 options that she thinks best, presenting that to us and the team. And then it's all evaluating it and talking through it together. The same with strategy. The strategy is not based on me, it's based on the users. So constantly looking at what our users need, what their requests are, and then building a strategy around that. Certainly on the business strategy, where we want to go, like we have really big ideas at Subly, but then you also have to break those down in 2-week sprints for the technical team, and then 3-month roadmap. And then that might need to be adjusted in 3 months as well, again, based on the data. And also I'd say the data is the biggest thing, like you need to keep looking at it. So I definitely don't do all of these alone. If anything, I'd say, it's usually the management team. So there's 5 of us, 4 on the management team. And then I'd say 5 because we have our board director as well, which is Paul. And so if we're really struggling with something or a strategy, or we're going to make a big change, then we often take that to the board as well, as it's good to get an outside perspective rather than us always in the weeds and always looking at the product. It needs someone external as well.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely enjoy asking external people, and it's always good to have a group around you. And speaking of group around you, I'm very grateful always to people at the incubator to having my back. And even though I've left Gate One now, I still often send my burning questions to the incubator group for validation. So it's always good to have one of those. So on that note, I'll stop rambling. Holly, thank you so much. It was great conversation, and I'll let Ali wrap up.
Yeah, thank you, Holly. Thanks for sharing. Incredibly insightful 45 minutes. Challenging a lot of norms there, not just building straight away, being more local and targeted with your approach, and actually being realistic, which is quite refreshing to hear from an entrepreneur or someone that is just gunning for it. So thank you very much on behalf of Gate One and the incubator. Thanks for sharing, and Tash, as ever, for your energy and facilitation. Hope you all have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Holly. Take care.